Hello, this is Stephen Dominguez, the S in the BS Podcast Network. Please enjoy this fine podcast.
What are you? I'm Batman.
Who are you?
My name is Bond. I'm Batman.
Name's Bond.
James Bond.
I'm Batman.
Bond. James Bond. I'm Batman.
I'm Batman.
This is the Batman vs. James Bond show. The show covering everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. And now, here's your host, Brian Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show, or should I say, a special episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. Yeah, this was not planned up until, I'd say, about midnight last night, yeah, and when I decided that, you know what, I need to come on here and talk about it. But the name's Thomas, Brian Thomas, of course, and I am your host, and this is a show where we discuss everything related to Batman and James Bond movies. It would be great to be back if I had good news to report. So maybe this is good news that I had to report. I don't know. I'll let you be the judge, okay? Normally, I just go into my whole spiel about, go to batmanvsbond.com, find all the latest shows on there and all the links. Now, let's hop right into it before my wife comes home and asks why I'm recording an extra episode this week. Ben Affleck has announced that this past Monday, January 30th, that he will not, I repeat, not direct the Batman movie as previously planned. He is going to still write, star, and produce in this movie. Quoted, "There are certain characters who hold a special place in the hearts of millions," Affleck said. "Performing this role demands focus, passion, and the very best performance I can give. It has become clear that I cannot do both jobs to the level they require. Together with the studio, I've decided to find a partner and a director who will collaborate with me on this massive film. I am still in this, and we are making it, but we are currently looking for a director. I remain extremely committed to this project and look forward to bringing this to life for fans around the world." And according to Variety, before we even go into that, Warner Brothers also said that they fully support Ben Affleck's decision to remain committed to working with him to bring a standalone Batman picture to life. And that was coming from the studio. This is all from Variety now, and BatmanNews.com. Now, let's go right into it. When I heard this news last night, this is a Batman movie show, okay? And yeah, work comes first, of course. And when I say work, I'm not talking about the show. I'd actually have a 9-to-5 job. So by the time I, put my head on my pillow, I had just gotten ready to go to bed, I get this tweet online from, it's actually one of the guys from the BS Podcast Network, as a matter of fact, Steven. Shout out to Steven from BS Podcast Network's Science Faction Podcast. And he alerted me to this. I was not ready for this news when I heard this. As a matter of fact, this is the last thing I wanted to hear before going to bed besides the puppy peeing on the floor. I was in shock. I literally was in shock. I was completely stumped on this. I'm like, my wife's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, Ben Affleck's not directing the Batman movie. What the hell is going on? And yeah, I was, the signs were there. I mean, I've been reporting this news for, ever since the start of this show, and I almost didn't want to believe this. I gotta be honest, I didn't want to believe this. I've been weighing it all day. I've been listening to other shows, other news, or reading it on other news sites, thinking, okay, look, I'm still in the shock factor, or maybe I'm moving past that right now. Now it's like, what do we make of this news? This can be broken off into a whole bunch of different, this can be good, this can be bad. I see it, and I know a lot of other fans out there, who were really pumped up for this, including myself, clearly. That's why I have the tone that I do right now. Normally in a show, I'm not this amped up and kind of hyper right now, and I haven't even drank coffee today. And I have to say that I'm really disappointed. I'm really, really disappointed because, yes, well, let me start with the pros, okay? So the pros with this is, we still have Ben Affleck as Batman. That's awesome. We still have Ben Affleck writing this movie, and, give credit where credit is due. He is an Oscar award-winning writer for Good Will Hunting, with Matt Damon, of course. And he is still going to be starring, writing, he's going to be producing that also. So that's a big deal also. Maybe the pros I'm making, I'm sure you've heard this all over the news today, wherever you get your news. Hopefully it's from me also. But I will say that everything I've heard about this is, there are a lot of pros, there are a lot of cons. The biggest pro is that he can just focus on writing and starring on this. We know that there's been reports, he's been back and forth with this saying, okay, well, I just need to get this script right. And I talked about maybe he's a perfectionist when it comes to this because of how big a Batman film fan he is, or fan in general. He is known for directing, and the movies I've seen of him directing are Argo and The Town, and I love those movies. I think those are excellent movies, and not just from the drama, and it's got the right amount of action, especially in The Town. There's some really well done action scenes in that movie, and I know that he would be able to do something like that with a Batman movie. I'm trying to think of more pros about this. Okay, well, I mean, I don't know. I really can't think of too many pros about this right now. I'm still drawing blanks on this. So let's go to the cons. Now, we've heard for the last almost year now that, Ben Affleck's going to be writing and directing this movie and starring in it. But we've also heard, more recently, since the beginning of the year, well, maybe or Ben Affleck put it in this sense, saying that, I'm not going to, the script's just not there yet, or, unless I have a good script, I'm not going to direct this. And a lot of people, I mean, if you would have told me that, about 2 months ago that he wasn't going to be directing this movie, I would have said, no, come on, that's all BS. It really is BS, but unfortunately, this is true. This is reality. And we've heard reports of the script problems. We've heard, about Ben Affleck not being happy with this. And like I said, I know I'm reiterating that, but it's still, the signs, I guess, the more we look at this, if we're playing Batman ourselves, we're playing detective right here, the signs have been kind of there. Let's look at the evidence, and, all the little tidbits have been there. Let's look at something else. And this is not about Batman, but it is about Ben Affleck, given the fact that his last film, Live by Night, it didn't do well. As a matter of fact, it didn't do very well at all. The number I keep hearing is that it lost $75 million, give or take. It pretty much flopped, okay? And the thing is, it was a Warner Brothers Studios film. And guess who is the main studio for Batman but Warner Brothers Studios? Now, here's some other ideas that I was thinking. Okay, some cons. What if, Ben was being put under pressure? What if that, it was being rushed, okay? And I'm looking at it from, okay, let's blame the studio, because that's, of course, such an easy target. But, it is true given Warner Brothers Studios' track record with its DCU films. And I'm not going to go into a big banter on Batman v Superman or Suicide Squad. That's not what this is about. It's the fact of the matter is that studios have been known to interfere with their movies. And, even just last week, Warner Brothers announced that they were going to do a page one rewrite on their Flash movie. How does that affect Batman? Maybe not at all, but if you're looking at all these little shreds of evidence and news, you'll see, okay, one thing, it's becoming a repetitive pattern in a way. It's, Flash lost 3 directors. Wonder Woman was on its 2nd director with Patty Jenkins. Let's see what else there is. Suicide Squad, they're going to, David Ayer. With David Ayer, there was a lot of pressure, to get that script written in 6 weeks. They keep releasing these ultimate cuts, these extended cuts, the ones that we didn't see in theaters. And I have to say, I'm going to say this has a lot to do with the studio. And, maybe Ben Affleck is thinking, okay, well, it's one of many things. One, the studio has no idea which frickin' direction they want to go in. They are reactionary. Okay, people didn't like Batman v Superman as much as, we were hoping, so we'll try to dabble in Suicide Squad and try to make it more colorful. We'll try to, we'll try to make it more like a trailer, try to make it more like a music video. Well, it performed well if you're talking about money. But if you're talking about how audiences, rate it, I mean, I'm always hearing, I can't watch Suicide Squad. Even though it's for free, I don't want to watch Suicide Squad. Of course, that breaks my heart, because I kind of like Suicide Squad. I mean, I don't love it as much as I wanted to, and that was my most anticipated popcorn flick of last year, as a matter of fact. And I was disappointed in that. I really was, especially when the reviews came out for that. And now I'm hearing this, and we were supposed to get a Batman movie in 2018. It's 2017. It's January 31st, 2017, and I don't know the exact date. I think it was July, possibly, of 2018. They don't have a director yet, guys. They don't have a director. The script's not even finished. So, and in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, they've had all this time to get this script written. And I mean, maybe I'm looking at it from just a fan point of view, but how hard can it be to write a script? Well, I mean, I'm sure that takes a lot of work to, especially creatively, to put, especially the pressure that it would be for a Batman movie. And a lot of people, you're saying that, maybe there's so much pressure when it comes to writing, starring, producing that, maybe directing on top of that, especially in a Batman suit, that's got to be tough, especially a Batman film in general, because the stakes have been raised. Okay. I mean, we've talked about it before. If you want to go back to Batman 89, I'd say that started it. The Dark Knight trilogy, absolutely. If you want to say Batman v Superman, sure, why not? Okay, because of what visually, everything that Zack Snyder was able to do in that, the fight sequences and the special effects and so forth. Ben Affleck movies are not known for special effects. They really aren't. They're more grounded to a point. And I'm not saying that, you can't have a Batman movie that's grounded. I'm saying, though, that, yeah, it does require a bigger budget, and it does require, there's more to it. It's a bigger set. It's not just like going to, say, to Boston, for example, and just filming a movie. I'm not knocking, it sounds like I'm knocking, and I'm not, I don't mean to knock that at all, especially for any, writers or directors out there at all. But my point is, though, that even Ben Affleck made the comment in one of his many hundreds of interviews saying that, wow, when I was on the set for Batman v Superman, when I was on the set for Justice League, I didn't realize like how much there was to it. And like I said, Zack Snyder is known for visually directing big blockbuster pictures. That's what he is good at doing. But when it comes to the writing side of it, the storytelling part, not so well. That's where Affleck, I think, excels at. So, I mean, I'm not saying I want Zack Snyder to direct the movie and Ben Affleck to write it. No, I don't want that. I think that, before I even hop into like my ideas for directors, I want to say this. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm panicking. I'm getting nervous, and I'm more nervous than ever, as a matter of fact. And if somebody say, "Hey, Brian, do we panic about this?" At what point do we panic and just, say the DCEU is totally screwed? I will say, if you were to lose Ben Affleck as Batman somehow, some way, then I would say, okay, then we're totally screwed. We really are. But that hasn't happened yet, and maybe it's because he's under contract. I know that, to this point, that when a studio signs an actor and they have a contract and they say to the point of, okay, you're going to do a trilogy, you're set to play Batman for 3 times. It's in the contract. Well, if the studio wants to use Ben Affleck as their Batman, then he has to, because legally, I believe that's how it works. And for anybody who knows more about that, then please let me know. But if Ben Affleck, if they decide not to use him, then Ben Affleck is free to do whatever he wants. But I'm thinking, yeah, that has to do with the contract. Maybe he was already signed on. He has to honor this part of his contract. They own him, and I'm not saying that like, okay, well, they own him. They can do whatever the hell they want with him. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, he's still, I'm sure they could find some kind of a loophole to say, okay, well, I quit as Batman. Good luck and peace out. I don't think it's come to that. I think that the fact that he's still willing to write this, the fact that he's willing to produce this and star in it, I think that gives me hope. Hope. But I will say this, and I'm going to call it right now. And I was just saying, don't panic. But I think if we get any more bad news out of this, out of the Batman movie, out of the DCEU, I'm going to say, that's it. Hit the reset button, Warner Brothers DCU. You had a chance. You had such amazing material to work with, the best villains out there, some of the best superheroes out there. My personal favorite superheroes, which would be Batman. I really love The Flash, especially because of the TV show. I love what they've done with the Superman, with Man of Steel. I love Henry Cavill as Superman, but at the same time, and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. I like the approach that they hopefully will take with this. I like what I saw of her in Batman v Superman. All the key elements are there, but for some reason, the studio of Warner Brothers, which is a studio known for doing the Dark Knight trilogy, for doing all these amazing movies, they can't do this. I have no idea. And I'd love to know what you guys have to think about this, but I'm just going to say that if Wonder Woman and Justice League don't work out, scrap what you have, get the hell out of Dodge, Warner Brothers, DCU, and give it to Marvel. No, I'm just kidding. I will say that let's restart. If it didn't work out so well, that, you know what, just taking you. Cut your losses, really. You know, it's a shame too if this would ever happen. And I hope I'm not predicting the future here, but let's just say Wonder Woman does mediocre. It gets the same kind of reviews as a Man of Steel, and you know, some critics love it, some critics hate it, but the audiences love it. Well, if it makes money, then yeah, that's a good chance that it will. I have no doubt about that. I'm thinking though, what if it does get mixed reviews? Well, they kind of fall in that same territory as they did with Man of Steel. How do we recover from this? Well, a couple months later, you have the Justice League, but it's Zack Snyder. So, and I'm not bashing on Zack Snyder, but I will say that, you know, his track record with critics and sometimes with audiences is that either you get his films or you don't. And sometimes you might, there are people that fall in between about that, but I will say that, you know, Snyder has a big fan base. They know that he understands the characters. You know, he can, you know, visually, you know, like I said, he can put a comic, what's in the pages of a comic book to the big screen. I really think he can do that. I think that he excels at that. I think though that, you know, this is going to be one of those years that, you know, I wouldn't even really worry right now about, you know, filming anything else besides let's hope that everything is perfect with Wonder Woman and Justice League. And if they can find a director for this Batman movie, for this new upcoming, the Batman, whatever the hell they're going to call it, then, you know, maybe things will work out for the best. Maybe this could be the best thing to happen. Maybe, who knows? You know, I will say also that I've said it once on this show before, and I'm going to keep saying this. The idea of a cinematic universe, it's a great idea. It really is. There's studios out there. There's a specific studio, and I will give kudos, you know, to that studio, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel Studios, that they have found a way to make it work, okay? And some, you know, it just, because it works for one studio doesn't mean it will work for every other studio, though. And I think that this plays more into the fact of Warner Brothers. I'm blaming them. I'm making them sound like the bad guy, but it feels like something's fishy here, guys. It really is. And the idea of everything that they had the perfect beginning with Man of Steel. They could have done the Wonder Woman movie long ago. They could have done the Batman movie long ago. Hell, they could have had the Flash, and then you put them together for Batman v Superman. Then you introduce the full Justice League. This whole cinematic universe has been rushed since Batman v Superman was even thought of. It really has been, and now I think they're paying the price for it. You know, or just trying to figure out where do we go with this? Because are we going to play catch up? Are we going to be reactionary to what the audiences are saying and to what the critics are saying? But I know I keep ranting about this, but I'll try to be as optimistic as I can. I'm going to keep hope alive because that's what I want to do, because as being the Batman fan that I am, you know, and because we're not going to get a Bond movie for who knows when, I will say that I'm going to keep hope alive. You know, hopefully they can find a new director that can step in for this movie and they can film the best freaking Batman movie we've ever had. So having said that, let's talk real quick about who I'd like to see direct. And I will also say this. I do not believe, I don't believe that for a director to come, for any director that they decide to have. I know that a lot of people, a lot of, you know, movie sites are already posting the top 10 list of people who or directors that we should have for this Batman movie and why. This is not quite like that, and my feelings are because I will say that you don't have to have an A-lister to direct a great movie. Absolutely not. If anybody was said or asked what Memento was, majority of people won't know what Memento was, but do they know who Christopher Nolan is now? Yeah. Why? Because he directed the Dark Knight trilogy, and he directed an amazing, one of the best trilogies ever. Sorry, Back to the Future, but I will say that you can have a no-namer, okay? Just because I don't have a no-namer on this list doesn't mean that I'm hoping that they find a no-namer out there, some indie director who, you know, has all this, you know, these creative ideas that most people wouldn't even thought of, that can collaborate with Ben Affleck and direct such a great the possibilities are endless. They really are. But my point is, though, that who knows, maybe the next Nolan is out there. What if? So I will say that, you know, people have even been sending me, you know, tweets earlier today, and they're saying, well, what if so-and-so directed this? I've seen online, okay, David Fincher, great director, absolutely great director. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Gone Girl, one of my favorite Ben Affleck movies, as a matter of fact. Coincidentally, he did work with Ben Affleck. I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think that David Fincher will direct a Batman movie. Reason for that is that, and I was reading this online and I've read this before in the past, that he's had problems with the studio because, he is, and his reputation precedes him. But if he doesn't have his way of how he wants to do the movie, he will not let the studio interfere at all. That's a great thing. But given that he's going to be stepping into something where a universe is already created and he might have ground rules, probably not going to happen. Absolutely not. Doug Liman was a director I saw on there, which I was thinking about. He directed Edge of Tomorrow. He directed The Bourne Identity. He was supposed to, or there's chances are that he could direct the Justice League Dark movie, which doesn't even, I don't think, have a script as far as I know. So Doug Liman, he can do a big budget action movie. The Bourne Identity was not a big budget action movie, but it was a spy. It was more character driven. Edge of Tomorrow, I will say, is definitely heavy on the action, but it did have a good story in there. So it seems like as long as he has the right story, then he can direct a good movie. So then he knows I know what he can do. Especially if you haven't seen Edge of Tomorrow, by the way, or The Bourne Identity, definitely go see those movies aside from Batman and James Bond talk. Denis Villeneuve, I believe that's how you pronounce it. The one I know him for, the only movie I've seen of his is Prisoners. Really, that is a very dark thriller. It is a very character driven in there. He brought out some great performances by Hugh Jackman in there. What's the guy's name? Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal was in that. I think that he would be a great choice. He's recently directed Sicario. He's about to do, he did, what's it called? Arrival. He did Arrival last year. 2 movies I haven't had a chance to see. We will get Blade Runner 2049. I would like to see him direct that movie. I think he might be one of my top choices. He would probably be in my top 2, and the reason for that is because I think he could, I think he can do the action. I don't think it's a question of whether he can handle the CGI, because from what I saw with the trailers from Arrival, you have to have CGI if you're going to create an alien ship and tell that kind of story. With Blade Runner, everything I've seen with that, he's recreated the Blade Runner set that Ridley Scott had created, but he looks like he's taken the next level because he has one of my favorite cinematographer. He has Roger Deakins, and Roger Deakins he's the best at what he does. So if we had Roger Deakins as a cinematographer for the Batman movie and he did Skyfall, just shut up and take my money. Absolutely. This next one I was talking about on the episode that you will hear this week, and it's funny because I was just watching this movie this past weekend. John Wick, not John Wick the director, I'm talking about the director of John Wick, Chad Stahelski. And if you haven't seen John Wick, then, if you know anything about John Wick, you will know it's a very heavy action. It's very light on story. The story's there. It's a very simple story in a way, but when it comes to filming action sequences, these guys him and his other collaborator, I forget his name off the top of my head, but they come from the stunt world of being able to film, these kind of stunts. And now you have him doing action movies, how he was able to do car chases in there, the gung fu sequences and fighting sequences that he had in there with just Keanu Reeves. And I'm thinking, I'd love to see that in a Batman movie, because it was pretty evident in Batman v Superman with the fight sequences when he was trying to save Martha Kent in there, that those his fighting moves in there, I'd love to see this guy directed. And, if the story is there, then I don't see why he couldn't direct this movie. It is going to be an even bigger scale. He just got finished with John Wick 2, which gets released this upcoming month. So I'd like to see him on there. Other names that I saw, possibilities were Antoine Fuqua. He directed Training Day. He's directed many other movies like The Equalizer. That's definitely kind of that dark kind of kind of a hero trying to save, help, the little guy where they can and so forth. So that kind of had elements, I guess, of Batman in a way. George Miller, that's one that's thrown around. I think that, if Mad Max is going to happen anytime soon, if George Miller's schedule is clear, and there was always possibilities that he could direct Man of Steel 2 or even Justice League, so he's definitely big and he's definitely friends with the studio because those are Warner Brothers movies. So, and Mad Max Fury Road is an incredible movie. It's an incredible movie. And, other directors that I could think of, there really aren't many that I could say. I mean, I've heard the guy who did the Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I've heard, Matthew Vaughn, who directed, X-Men First Class. So of course there's the, ones we hear the big name directors and so forth. But like I said, I'd like to see somebody smaller do this. I want like a no-namer indie director to do this. And of course, I want to hear what you guys have to think about this. So, hit me up at Batman vs. Bond on social media and let me know. So that wraps it up for this episode of the Batman vs. James Bond show. Hold on, give me a second to breathe. All right. Okay. I'm better now, right? No, maybe not. Anyway, so please subscribe on Spreaker and iTunes, rate it 5 stars, and leave a nice review for me on there. Thank you. Biggest thing I always ask is that you share the show with your friends. Follow me on all the various social media networks, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Batman vs. Bond, and find the show at batmanvsbond.com and the BS Podcast Network. Like James Bond, I will return. Until next time, I'm Brian Thomas. Thanks for listening, and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
The preceding podcast is part of the BS Podcast Network. Visit bspodcastnetwork.com for more shows just like this one, and perhaps a few that are just a little bit better.